The program you're about to watch is underwritten by Allergan. The views expressed therein are solely those of the doctors.
Have you ever looked at someone else's skin and said to yourself, if only I had a complexion like that? Or God, I'd kill for her skin. Whatever she's got going on, I'll have what she's having. You're not alone. But how do we step away from the celebrity wish list of attributes and focus on what is truly best for our own skin? I am Ruth Downie, and I am a dermatologist as well as a pediatrician. I am very interested in skincare and actually started a company called Regimen MD. Today we're going to dive into skin confidence and how you can get on the path to loving the skin you're in. We'll also debunk common skin myths and answer a question from one of our glow getters. And you'll even get a look into my personal handbag to see an item that I absolutely cannot live without. It's all coming up on The Gist.
Meet 5 of the most sought-after dermatologists in the country.
The most important part of the show is we have the truth. We own the truth.
It's our behind the scenes. There's no filter. It's like all the conversations we have in the breaks.
It's going to be so fun to kind of share some of our favorite things like shoes or travel tips, relationships.
Travel tips are great.
Do you guys remember that commercial from, I think it was the 80s?
Well, I was just born in the 80s.
It's all coming up on The Gist.
To the dermatologist.
The dermatologist.
All too often, my patients come into the office with a specific goal in mind to make them feel and look better. Can you remove this line? I'd like to get rid of this wrinkle between my eyebrows. As they are speaking about their particular wish list, I'm thinking, lady, you are overlooking the most obvious part of your first impression, your skin quality. And so the basis for enhanced self-image is what I call skin confidence. It is the first step to looking and feeling better every day and in every situation. Let's dive right into this topic. Sabrina, what happens in your office?
I see the same thing. In San Diego, people have a lot of sun exposure and a lot of sun damage as a result. And they come in wanting injectables, fillers, because they perceive that as lasting longer and they pay no regard to their skin condition. I tell them that I can get rid of every line, every wrinkle, and they can have no shadows on their face, but if their skin doesn't match that volumetric change, then they look unnatural. And so even if the filler is done perfectly, if their skin quality doesn't match that volume, they just look a little off. And
They're so underexposed to this concept that their skin should really glow.
I completely agree with you. I tell them that they also have to pay attention to improving the quality of their skin, whether it's perhaps improving the blood vessels or the redness, as well as some of the pigmentation changes that they see so that they can regain that glow again.
It's interesting, they all bring pictures in, so many bring pictures in, and it's someone who has gorgeous skin, but they're not focusing on that.
I think all patients are looking for skin tone improvement. And the way the light hits the skin and bounces off the skin, it makes somebody look uniquely appealing or uniquely not appealing. And so my patients come in and they compliment me on my skin tone while they're really focused on that line or that wrinkle or that crease. And I explain to them that it's a package where we can enhance what they look like and we can take away some of the tension lines from their face, but the landscape of their face also has to look its best.
So Doris, do you think there's a way that we can maximize how we explain that and express that to our patients?
It's one of the hardest things we do as dermatologists. As I'm listening to everyone give the descriptions, I'm sitting here nodding my head enthusiastically going, yeah, exactly, we all have the same issues. And Jeanine, you have gorgeous skin tone. Just sitting here admiring her skin tone. But to have an even complexion, there's studies that show over and over again that even if you got rid of all the lines and wrinkles, just as Sabrina said, you still look older if you have uneven skin tone. And a lot of times when I tell patients that, you know, these marks are there and 90% of what you see, those changes in the skin, are from sun exposure, the first thing they say is, well, I haven't been in the sun. And so I have to edit it and say, well, it's from chronic sun exposure over many years. So even if you're better now, even if you sat in a dark room and never went out in the sun again, those spots will still come up over time. And what we do in the office, we need to complement with home care so that we can optimize both the quality and the substance of the skin.
So
and it makes
true.
such a difference.
So true. And I often bring a picture of myself when I was 10, covered with freckles, because I like to go the other way. And I like to say, look, if you had all that damage, there are lots of things we can do to reverse it.
Well, I think it's a big problem. So since Sabrina and I are both from California, we see this all day long. People coming in and they wanting something that's really not going to affect the way they look as much as it would if they really took care of their skin. So the whole idea of, and people come in all the time and they say to me, oh my God, your skin looks so beautiful. I'm like, well, it didn't just happen overnight. I had to do something, and it requires real attention to the regimen that you are prescribed. And so I absolutely insist. I said, okay, well, we can do like all the magic that we have here in the office, but if you're not going to take your skincare home and pay attention to it like an exercise routine or your nutrition, morning, night, day after day after day, you're not going to achieve what you want.
And
that
I
glow.
actually carried that to the next level, and I basically said, I'm not giving you any needles unless you start your skincare, because it really doesn't work that way. And I think you have to impress that upon your patients.
100%. And also, I think that people misunderstand the idea that the quality of your skin is a reflection of your internal health. And so that's why it's so important, right? Don't you
I mean,
agree?
even babies are attracted to even skin tone, symmetrical faces, and beauty. Even babies, and they don't know what they're doing yet necessarily.
Raymond brings up a really good point that to have beautiful skin is a reflection of your overall health and well-being. Somebody who's happier is going to have more radiant skin, and what you eat is also reflected in your skin. So part of the skincare discussion has to do with what you put on your skin, but also what you put in your body. And eating more antioxidants and less sugar has a really powerful impact on your skin quality.
That's so true, but I have to say one of the lines I give my patients is, I'm not telling you not to eat donuts, I'm telling you to put cream and sunscreen on. I think the difference is really important in terms of that it doesn't have to be hard. Diet somehow is a lot harder than skincare.
But
important.
I agree with Doris. I remind my patients there are multiple studies to show it's not just the diet that you intake. Like Mediterranean diet has been found to substantially improve not only the appearance of lines and wrinkles, but surprisingly even pigmentation. But
what Mediterranean foods do you love?
I love fish. I love fish. I love olive oil. And having.
Can you dip bread in olive oil?
And so a diet low in bread, believe it or not, low in carbs, all of these things have an impact. And then also how much you sleep. There are studies to show that if you sleep 8 hours or more, it has an impact on your quality of skin than if you don't. And also how much you exercise. So we can do so much.
And you might as well just throw sex in there too.
Yes, absolutely.
And I tell everybody that I exercise, basically 7 days a week, and I say 25 minutes of cardio, 25 minutes of weights. Now, I do think that you should do a minimum of 4 days a week, and I do think that you should give yourself time off.
Well, let's go
but
back.
That's critical.
Let's just go back to exactly what we're doing, because the most important thing for me, obviously, in with my patient care, is the regimen. And it's like brushing your teeth. If you get established on what you put on every morning, it doesn't have to be difficult. Obviously, I put 10 things on, but there are nights when I fall asleep and I don't even wash my face. And I tell patients, don't beat yourself up. If you didn't do it at night, do it in the morning. Obviously, your sunscreen is the most important thing, and we take flack all day long for that. And the patient often says, of course I use sunscreen. And then I say, how many times a day? Because they use it once and they think that's it, they're done.
I kind of gave up. Because I tell patients, they come in, they have a tan, and we talk about sunscreen, and they swear up and down that they used it, they reapplied it, they use the 50, they set it under the umbrella, and they're still sunburned. So I tell them, okay, I believe you did everything right, but the tan still counts. So if you're tanning, because that's like the bottom line, right? So in the end, you could be doing all those things right, but if you get a tan, it does still count. So that protection doesn't undo the damage totally.
And it does, and I think, and the tan, people don't understand that that's a sign of sun
skin damage.
Right.
Yeah, it's skin damage.
Yeah, it's the skin trying to protect itself. It's really not,
And the concept, I love my freckles. Well, your freckles are your sign of sun damage.
Yeah.
Well, right, and I tell people to do a cheek to cheek, where you look at your cheek as in your face and your cheek as in your butt. And so all these people that think that freckles are so natural, they think freckles are so natural, and no, your cheek would really look like your other cheek if if you didn't have sun
That's
exposure.
right. So it all comes back to the bottom line, which is protect yourself, have a regimen, eat well, but most importantly, take care of your skin before you're thinking about a procedure. So what's in my bag? The one thing I don't leave the house without is Aquaphor. Aquaphor is a little bit more than just Vaseline. It hydrates and it protects. Good for the lips. It's the one thing I don't leave home without. And that's what's in my bag. As doctors, we get asked a lot of the same questions by our patients. Many of them are myths and common practices that we want to settle once and for all. So today I'd like to answer the question, can't I just Google good skincare advice? We're all shaking our heads right away with this one. I think you know that my answer is going to be short and sweet, no. Much of the information you will find online is not based on science. I prefer to think what we recommend is based on science. Products that tout skin-changing effects in 2 weeks, for example, are by definition a hoax, and our patients all think I can look like that. For years, researchers have been looking at the effects of sunlight, the environment, infrared light, visible light, cigarettes, and so many other polluting effects on our DNA. We also know that there are very specific ways to reverse this damage. Skincare has a lot of science behind it. Our patients need to know that. We are the educators. If you get your advice from a reliable source like a knowledgeable dermatologist, the regimen becomes easy. The changes become obvious. So I've kind of developed a really nice rhythm when the patient comes in and I'm talking about skincare, and I say, so tell me what you do for skincare. And I don't often get any kind of evidence that they really understand what skincare is. Do you see that?
I do. So I will start. I get so frustrated because my patients say to me, well, I just looked it up online and Google says blah, 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 blah. And the first thing I inform them is that Dr. Google didn't go to medical school, but I did. And then we kind of go from there. And I talk to them specifically about how frustrated I am with people looking online on Instagram, getting their stuff off of XYZ website. Where is the stuff shipped from? How is it stored? In 115 degree heat or in minus 20 degree cold? And so I tell them by the time it gets to you and you put it on your face, if there were active ingredients in it, and that's a big if, they're gone. So this is how we start the discussion with my patients.
But I do feel like people are going to do research on the internet. They are going to look up everything. They look us up before they come into the office. And so I think it's realistic to really find out exactly what they've looked at and what they've read, because that way you can kind of debunk any of that information one by one.
And there
So
are
do you
some good
and
sources.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you actually ask them to bring their products in with them?
Sometimes I do. Sometimes I do. But I also remind them that some ingredients sound great, what they may read online, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's getting absorbed into their skin to make a difference.
So there's pH, there's consistency, what exactly is
right,
getting into
vitamin
your
C
skin.
is wonderful, but what does it come in? Is it in a clear bottle? By the time that it's sitting on your shelf, facing the light, it's not
Right.
even active or doing anything.
Exactly.
So you're spending all this money on something that doesn't even work. So wouldn't you rather get information from your doctor to confirm whatever source it is that you're reading online?
Do you think they're afraid of the price in the doctor's office?
No, I think they spend a lot more when they buy at a beauty counter or even in Sephora or drugstore sometimes. Those could be expensive.
Or Nordstrom's.
Yeah, or Nordstrom's. I mean, I don't think it's the money that is the issue. It's really that they want that silver bullet. They don't want to miss that product. And sometimes if they don't understand all the ingredients or the claims on the label are so big that they're afraid of missing out on that great ingredient. But I have patients who bring in bags of product and they have really problematic skin. They're trying, they just don't have the right information. And I know all of us test products all the time and we help develop formulations. And hopefully we're also the ones doing a lot of the writing. So we have blogs, we have posts, we get interviewed for magazines. And I would say it's not a bad thing to do research online, but just look at the source. See where it's coming from. And it should be coming from a board certified dermatologist.
So the bottom line is that when our patients come into the office, we really have to elevate our status. We have to be the Genius Bar for skincare as well.
And so what do you think, what are your your wash and wear? What are the ingredients or what are the products that you...
My baseline level is sunscreen, antioxidant, and retinol. How about you, Sabrina?
I have all my patients wash, usually with a glycolic wash at night to get some of that pollution and particulate matter off of their face that ages them at night. And then I also have them use a retinol and ideally a growth factor.
I like a glycolic acid wash, I like a growth factor, and I like a great eye cream that's going to help to decrease puffiness and hopefully to decrease dark circles just a little bit.
You know, I do think that cleansing is the most important step in your beauty routine because makeup can attract pollution over the course of the day, and if you sleep with that on, that's toxic to the skin. So I use a cleansing brush as much as possible, and it's kind of more fun to wash that way with a gentle cleanser. And then sunscreen is an absolute must, and then if we can get growth factors in and antioxidants, that's ideal.
You added 4, so
Well, they're combined. It's mixed in.
I could have added more.
Sunscreen is a bottom line, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, yeah.
everything
Okay.
is
It's a
with
staple.
everything is with
Okay,
sunscreen.
And
They're
some
on.
sunblocks have antioxidants, so that could be one.
Exactly.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yes. So I agree. Start in the morning with a little bit of antioxidant and a sunscreen, because that way, whatever the sunscreen doesn't block, at least you have a little bit of protection. At night, I'm completely on board with everybody here. You've got to get the pollutants off because they are toxic. So even if you just old school, like take a washcloth and really scrub your face if you don't have a brush. And then I'm a huge fan of anything in the retinol category, along with, usually I really like the hyaluronic acid because I see that it helps with any irritation.
So
from
as you
retinol.
can see, we could all go on and on. There are many that we feel are necessary. It's really important to talk to your doctor and see what in fact makes the most sense for you. And now we're going to hear from one of our glow getters with a question about skincare.
My name is Olivia Thatcher. I work in fashion and I live in Brooklyn, New York. My skin issue is that I have incredibly sensitive skin and I live in an area of high pollution. My question is, what is the best thing I can do to protect my sensitive skin from the horrible New York City pollution?
One of my absolute favorite questions, because protection is not all about sunscreen. It's very important to realize that your DNA is also being damaged by everything out there that is not UVA or UVB based. And so the best protection is a really good antioxidant. Personally, my favorite is L-ascorbic acid, or tetrahexadecylascorbate, which is a lipid-soluble vitamin C. But vitamin C is probably the most studied and has the most evidence for really removing those free radicals that damage our skin.
I'm so glad that she has an awareness that pollution can have an effect not just on the skin. Actually, in one study, it increased pigmented spots by 20%, but even bone. There's osteoporosis that you get from chronic pollution.
I remember your lecture on that. I love that.
And so I tell my patients there are great mineral-based sunblocks that have zinc oxide, that have great antioxidants within them that they can use and reapply, but also they have to wash off that particulate matter at night, because if they sleep with all of that pollution on their face, it can have the deleterious effects that we know.
So Sabrina, do you think there's a percentage of zinc that you tell your patients that they need to stay above in order to have the true protection of zinc? And how do they get around that pasty look? I mean, if Jeanine used a zinc-based,
zinc,
it might not look so
gonna
great
be a
on her. So
problem.
how do you get over the appearance of it and sort of that cosmetic elegance?
So there are microionized zinc particles in some sunblocks that now you actually can add little tinted drops.
Yeah.
And that's what I do for my patients. And they have, some lines have multiple different colors of this tint so that you can tint it so that on someone like Jeanine's skin, you don't necessarily look white and geisha-like.
That's a great idea, because you can add any kind of tint to any moisturizer as long as it's a mineral based.
It is mineral based. So there's one company that has them, and that's what
But
we
you
do
could
in our
do it
practice.
on your own.
And
Yeah.
a lot of
what I tend to do, I can definitely speak for myself
Yes,
with
of
this.
course.
Is I'm the sunblock queen, so I wear it, all the time. So I put it on from the top of my forehead down to the bottom of my neck. I include the backs of my hands, but I like sunblocks that rub right in. So when I'm talking about pollution and protection from the sun, I'm talking about the Skin Medica, the Total Defense and Repair. I like that a lot. That's an SPF of 34. It comes in tinted and untinted. The tint that it comes in doesn't match my tint. So I do just the regular straight, and I put that all over. And then I reapply the Color Science that does come in my shade a multitude of times during the day. And in doing that, I'm protecting myself from the sun, and I'm protecting myself from indoor lighting, pollution.
But
all of
remember that there's a difference between physical and chemical.
Right.
And when you're putting physical sunblock on, which are your zinc and titaniums, those are reflecting. But when you're putting the chemical on, it's absorbing, which also causes a heat reaction. So people with pigmentary disorders have to be careful because those can enhance increased pigmentation. It's very important to speak to your doctor about your sunscreen.
Yeah,
Who
but
knew?
it's also, there's another problem that when you micronize zinc, it becomes a chemical because then it becomes absorbed. It's not physical in the same way. So we just think of zinc as being, okay, zinc is physical and then that's the end of it. But it's really not. When we change the molecule, you're changing the absorption or the effect on the skin. And I don't think we know enough about what happens when we micronize the physical sun
Absolutely.
protectants. And then they become chemicals. So there is work that needs to be done. And now there's even more fear because of the absorption of some of these products, the chemical ones. And even zinc, I think when it's micronized, it's absorbed. And now people are afraid to use them because they're afraid of
the
skin
environment.
cancer.
And the most important thing is to realize that yes, you can protect your skin from the pollutants in the environment, and usually the good news is it's a once a day rather than every 90 minutes as with our sunscreen. There are products that you use at night as well to kind of clean up what's happened during the day, but antioxidant is very important to protect from the environment. So the bottom line is that we can all agree that skincare is the foundation for anything we are going to do to enhance beauty. I love making people feel better about themselves, and it's all based on how good their skin can look when we are guiding them. And when my patients take care of themselves and feel their best, they radiate that skin confidence. And when they do, people say, I'll have what she's having. You get the gist.
Want to be part of our Derm Squad? Like and subscribe to The Gist.